Welcome to the broadcast. It has been 8 years since Iraq agreed to dispose of its weapons of mass destruction. It still has not happened. Tonight, the man in charge of that effort for the past several years explains why he believes Saddam is still smiling.
In the same 18-month period, I made repeated attempts to put personally to Kofi Annan and I and my staff, to his senior staff, facts about weapons and Iraq's concealment of them. And what I encountered was an attitude of somewhat glazed eyes.
Richard Butler is the former head of the Special United Nations Commission set up to disarm Iraq of weapons of mass destruction. That commission, called UNSCOM, was established in 1991 as part of a deal that ended the Gulf War. Butler resigned as chairman earlier this summer after 2 years of what he describes as frustration and resistance, not only from Baghdad, but from the United Nations itself. Let me come to this. Number one, Saddam is still in power in Iraq. Number two, there has been no UNSCOM inspection of any kind for how long?
This is a terrific little fact, Charlie. Today's the 3rd of August.
Right.
The 3rd of August, a year ago, first anniversary today, was the day that across the table in Baghdad, Tariq Aziz demanded of me that I declare Iraq disarmed, on the spot. I said, I can't and I will not, because you haven't given me the evidence of that. And we left the next morning, and the day after that, disarmament inspections stopped. So we are talking on the first anniversary of there being no disarmament work in Iraq.
And so what do you think has happened in that year?
I think that they have continued to try to break out, to lengthen and increase the capacity of their missile force against the law. The law says they may not have missiles that can fly further than 150 kilometers. Now, the last things I was arguing with them about was efforts that they were trying to make in a backdoor way to increase the capability of their missile force. They refused to do what I said they should do, and of course, in our absence, they've continued with that. Just quickly, too, I'm sure that they will have resumed their work on chemical and biological weapons.
So whatever efforts might have been successful in inspection and destruction of weapons has begun to be replenished because there's been no inspection for a year.
I don't know for sure. By definition, I can't know. I don't think anyone can with absolute certainty. Why? Because we're not there. And that's what I will harp on. The consequence of not being there is very real.
We want to get to that. Go ahead.
I do assume, and with some good reason, may I say, that they are continuing to break out in the missile area, and that they will have put back together their teams in the nuclear, chemical and biological area, and possibly are producing some of the stuff again.
As far as you know, from whatever intelligence sources you had access to what end? What do they want to do with those chemical, biological, and nuclear weapons of mass destruction? Intimidate people?
Well,
use them?
That's not an easy question to answer, and people more expert than I have been reflecting on that for a long time. But I'll have a shot at it. First of all politics, as O'Neill said, is local.
Right. Tip O'Neill.
I know. I know. All politics are local. And so you must assume that the first purpose of any behavior by Saddam is to stay in power. And I believe that his addiction, and it is an addiction, established over years to these weapons of mass destruction, flow in the first instance from his need to be strong, to be able to intimidate the population, to stay in power. You think I'm exaggerating? Let me remind you that this man used chemical weapons and nerve agents
on his own people,
in 1988. Right. Because a village had the temerity to express some unwillingness to continue to live under his rule. Bang, they were gassed, okay, with genetic effects that continue today. Now, secondly, if you read his speeches, he sees what he calls an Arab nation with a small n. It's almost an ethnos.
Right.
He sees an Arab nation out there which needs a leader Last year, he
And
even...
anybody who has the big one
Yeah,
becomes
that's
de facto the leader.
And he thinks those weapons qualify him for that. And I've got to say, thirdly, Tariq Aziz has expressed to me, his Deputy Prime Minister, has expressed to me, in a quite shocking way, in private conversation, their wish to be able to deal with the Iranians and the Israelis.
Deal with them.
Well, I couldn't go further
All right.
than that. But